Hey, everybody. Welcome back to our Take podcast series on youtube.com and Spotify. We're excited to bring you the NCAA tournament debate now. And Josh and I have picked our brackets up to the Elite Eight. So we're excited to come at you with some great debate and great conversation. I'm just going to lead off, Josh. Going into the Elite Eight and my first section, I've got UConn versus St. John's in the West. So I've got UConn going through Oklahoma, Florida, Memphis, to get to the Elite Eight against St. John's.
Wrong.
How's that wrong?
I got Florida coming out over UConn. I know UConn's the back-to-back, two-time defending national champs, but they have been very, very vulnerable this year. In a way, kind of like the Chiefs in the NFL this year, but UConn actually lost those games. And Florida has been in a class of their own. Could possibly win a national championship. I wouldn't be surprised.
A class of their own.
30-4, dude. They've been studs.
They have not, I understand that they've done well this year, but every time I see elite teams mentioned in the tournament, it's always Houston or Duke or Auburn. It's not ever been Florida. Like Houston, Duke, and Auburn are the three that have been lighting up the headlines. Florida's just kind of there. And they happen to be in the same area as UConn, who UConn knows how to turn it on during the tournament.
Right. But I think Duke gets a lot of the headlines because of Cooper Flagg and potential number one pick. Houston's elite defensively.
Yes, they are.
But
They're
Florida
awesome.
is kind of flying under the radar in that aspect for you because SEC was probably the number one league.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that. I think when in doubt, I'm going to always go to the defending champions. Two-time defending champions.
And honestly, I wouldn't be mad if you were right and I was wrong because I just like watching Dan Hurley on the sidelines. Like that dude's like one crazy SOB.
he is. He cracks me up. What about my pick for St. John's in there? I think they've done amazing things at St. John's this year. Put them back on the national spotlight.
Right. Honestly, I'm rooting for St. John's because of the Coach Pitino and him taking over that program, bringing them back to elite status, and I'm excited for them. And I think that's probably the team with Indiana not being in there, who I'm rooting for. I've always kind of leaned towards Duke. Back in my high school days, they won me my geometry contest for NCAA tournament.
I
was
remember
a fat
you saying
kid, and I won candy bars. So I love me some Duke Blue Devils.
Oh, Lord. I mean, St. John's UConn is going to be an interesting matchup on my end of things. It'd be hard for me to pick who's going to win that one. They're both extremely well coached. They said Dan Hurley, probably the best coach in college basketball, next to, I think, Kelvin Sampson, in my opinion, or Bruce Pearl from Auburn. He's been there and he's done a really good job with that program. But I think between Rick Pitino and Dan Hurley, Kelvin Sampson, I mean, you just have a lot of strength down there in that area. Like I said, I'm picking UConn and St. John's in that particular nest of Vipers over there because you got Kansas, who I'm prone to Kansas because I'm cheering for Flory, a native of our hometown, star player of our high school basketball team. I'm cheering for Kansas. I just don't think they have the firepower to go up against St. John's. But they are going on number 10 Arkansas. Kansas is, Josh, with a Hall of Fame coach in Arkansas who has once said that, by God, coaches they're a few weeks away from bankruptcy and being homeless. You know, I'm not sure if you know that coach,
Mr. Calipari.
Yep.
I wish he was jobless, homeless, and unemployed.
Oh my God,
sack of crap. I hate that dude.
Dude,
hey, remember that perfect season? All you Kentucky fans, remember that perfect season you guys had? Won a national championship. One of the only teams to ever go undefeated, win the whole thing. Oh wait, you lost to IU. That's right. F you. Bunch of Wildcat pieces of garbage.
Chris, do you think I did a good job in getting him riled up for that one? Just the mention of Calipari's name.
Sure. Shout out Tom Crean. I miss you.
All right, Josh, going over to the other
Come
side
back.
of on the other side of the aisle, we have I've got Houston. I think Houston's going to go all the way to the national championship, in my
Do you?
opinion. But I've got Houston versus UCLA, a number 7 seed. I got UCLA beating Utah State and then beating Tennessee. They're pretty even matchup between the two. I think UCLA is a very streaky team, but when they're on, they're beating big time teams. Michigan State and all. They're a heck of a team when they're all playing. They just got to be in the right mindset, and I think they have the explosiveness to beat Tennessee. And then I have them beating Illinois, another tough team, to go up against Houston. I think they're going to get beat by Houston, but I got Houston versus UCLA over there in the Midwest.
Yeah. Uh, well, just to back up my argument earlier, Florida, the Gators did beat Houston earlier in the season, so there you go. But on this one, I have Houston and Tennessee.
Of
Not a
course
lot
you
of
do.
crazy upsets. My Elite Eight, there's nothing really crazy going on, uh, which I'll be wrong. But
Oh yeah,
anyway,
you will. You're already wrong.
I do have Tennessee, though, beating Houston to go to the Final Four.
Well, I mean, if you look at mine, Houston it just kind of sweeps through. Gonzaga is going to give them a fight. If Gonzaga can survive Georgia, I've got them benefit of the doubt for Gonzaga to beat Georgia. But Gonzaga is not the team that we've known it to be for the last 20 years. They're 50-50 for me. I got them
No.
beating Georgia though, just giving them the benefit of the doubt, and then getting wiped by Houston. Clemson, I've got beating Purdue. I just witnessed Purdue get embarrassed in the Big Ten, like absolutely just killed. And they miss Zach Edey like a fat kid misses cake, man. They really do. And I don't see Purdue going out of that second round. And Clemson, I think, is going to give them a pretty good beat down. I think Houston's going to dominate that area though. UCLA, I got them as kind of a small Cinderella story, being a 7th seed, not like a 16 seed or anything.
Yeah.
But UCLA again, if they're shooting well, if they're on the right set of mind, they can beat anybody. And I think during the tournament time, I think they're ready and they're kind of getting to that point where they're going to start that streak's going to start turning towards that tournament. So I got Houston, UCLA.
Yeah, I had Houston and Tennessee. I had UCLA win in the first round, but Tennessee is streaky. When they're
So is
on,
UCLA.
they are on, and they have firepower from everyone.
Yeah.
And so I'm taking a chance because usually teams like that, obviously they can be on and they go all the way.
Right.
But then there's those games, especially like the Cinderella upset stories. That's when that happens when they're off and the other team's got a star that's hit a few big shots.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna roll with. I have St. John's and Tennessee coming out of the bottom half of the bracket into the Final Four.
Tennessee and Florida traded wins, big wins. They beat Florida 64-44 and turned around and lost 73-43.
Yeah,
And then UCLA lost by 2 to Carolina, North Carolina, got stomped by Michigan, barely lost to Illinois the first time around. Got beat by Purdue by 10. It looks like. So they've been streaky, but when they win, man, they come in, beat Gonzaga, beat Michigan State, and beat Arizona all by 2 or 3 points. So they are used to coming in, and even though they're streaky, they're used to being able to win in those close moments in a close game. They do have clutch, and I don't think I see any games outside of the round of 32 that are going to be close. Particularly, like Illinois, I think is going to stomp Kentucky. You know what I mean? Like I think Illinois is going to take their lunch money, but again, I may be wrong.
yeah, that's fair. I had uh, Kentucky winning that game. But I also, real quick, because we did mention North Carolina, and I'm still salty because IU didn't get in. Do
We're
I
getting there in
think
the
they
South, yeah.
do I think they should have got in, or IU over North Carolina? Yes. Would IU made some noise? No, probably not.
They made noise in the last half of the season, last part of the season.
Shut up.
I'm just being
But
honest. They made noise. They
okay, they
had,
made a little bit of noise because they beat Ohio State, and I'm not going to get into that. But what I want to do is because a man that's way smarter than I am when it comes to college basketball, Mr. Dick Vitale, who I also want to shout out for all of his work he does for cancer research and promoting
yes,
that, and
absolutely.
give also a shout out for him being able to beat cancer again, recover from it. I was watching the I think it was the Duke game when he came back, and I believe they were playing Clemson, and he was there for that game, and he was emotional. I started getting emotional. I remember Dick Vitale was uh, calling the game when IU beat Kentucky. That's right. I still can throw in Kentucky in this part too.
Hey,
Uh,
a good friend of Bobby Knight too, a very close
right.
friend of Coach Knight.
And I remember just growing up watching oh baby, that's I always remember Dick Vitale. But anyways, I want to shout him out. And
He is the
but
college basketball what Lee Corso is the college football.
right.
Yeah.
But even Dick Vitale posted on Twitter earlier talking about he thought quad ones. We talked about quad one wins to get into the tournament. That was a big deal. That's what they were going to focus on. North Carolina quad one record 1-12. That win in a neutral site versus UCLA by 2 points.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. That should have been over Indiana. IU was 4-13. Did have more losses, but we beat Michigan State at Michigan State. So if I'm just looking at that, to me, I'm going to pick IU. But I'm also biased, and I will admit that. But I don't want to rage out and ramble on forever and ever. But I just want to say that's some BS.
I thought you were wanting to get Woodson out of there as quick as possible.
I do. And I want to clarify. I wanted Woodson to succeed. I honestly, when he first got hired, I was excited and thought he would.
Yeah.
So I don't have any feelings for him, but I just don't think he's the right guy. Legit, I think we got a little cocky as Indiana fans community when we got rid of Tom Crean. I know it's frustrating. We kept losing the Sweet 16. We'd face teams with a 2-3 zone, and we'd be like, well, why can't we figure it out? I'm a C team freshman losing coach in basketball, and I could draw up something better than that offense we were running. But anyways, I miss you, Tom Crean. I'm sorry.
I mean, look at Kelvin Sampson down there as a number 1 seed too.
Well, that's a whole other story, and we didn't
Yeah.
get rid of him. He got rid of himself because whatever.
Yeah. I got you. Well, aside from, you have anything else to add to the IU drama there with North Carolina?
No, I think IU should have been there, but whatever. North
Okay,
Carolina's the
listen.
bigger brand.
You know what's sad is that we're arguing over the 11th seed of North Carolina versus IU. Back when you and I were kids, or when I was a kid, I'm just a little bit older than you. When I was a kid, it was never a discussion if IU or North Carolina, either one of them, were going to be in the tournament. You know what I
I
mean?
know. Yeah.
So, shout out to Dean Smith. God bless you, Dean, Coach Smith, and Coach Knight. God bless you both. But Josh, as we get into the South, I've got what you have 1 and 2, I'm sure, but I've got Auburn, Michigan State. I got Auburn beating Louisville in the round of 32, and then beating Michigan, and then playing Michigan State. I love Tom Izzo. Tom Izzo is my favorite. Him and Rick Pitino both are my favorite coaches in college basketball. I love Tom Izzo. He reminds me of a throwback, old school Bobby Knight, Gene Cady, Lou Henson type of coach. Same for Rick Pitino. And I got Michigan State versus Auburn in that Elite Eight section there, with Michigan State beating Iowa State, Marquette, and Bryant.
Yeah, I have the end goal at Auburn, Michigan State. That's who I had with Auburn beating Michigan State. I really thought hard about getting an upset because there's usually always a 1-5-12 upset. And I thought about giving it to UC San Diego, but I did not. I did have Texas A&M going further than you, and I had Ole Miss versus Michigan State to play Auburn, with Michigan State obviously beating them. And then I have Auburn because in my opinion, for this overall season, Auburn has been the best team. And now I'm going to argue with myself here in a couple minutes when we go further, but that's what I have right now.
Well, I've got Michigan State beating Auburn. I think this is Tom Izzo's year. Michigan State's the games they've won have been like, what the heck are you thinking games, like smack on the face. But I think they're battle tested more than Auburn. Just being in the Big Ten, I think toughens you up more than any other conference. And Michigan State, I think they're battle tested and they're blooded and they're ready to go. I just don't see that Auburn beating them. I think it's going to be a close game, maybe by 2 or 3, but I think Michigan State's going to get them. And then down in the other brackets, by the way, I got St. John's beating UConn and Houston beating UCLA for those spots. So
Okay.
I didn't mention that earlier. But now we go into the East. I've got Duke basically sweeping through their games, and Alabama basically sweeping through the games, with the exception of Wisconsin. I think Wisconsin's going to give Alabama a fight. Again, another Big Ten team. Now, I'm partial to the Big Ten, as you know, as you are, Josh. I think we both agree that the Big Ten is the toughest. It is the crown jewel of college basketball. And Wisconsin's going to give Alabama a fight. I think Alabama is tough enough to withstand it. Their defense is tremendous, and their consistent shooting to overcome Wisconsin. I think Duke is going to beat Alabama pretty handily, though. I think Duke is going to beat them by probably 8 to 10 in that game. But that's my take on the East.
Yeah, I actually had BYU going up against Alabama. Uh, Again, I almost put BYU to upset Alabama, and but I didn't. I ended up going again. Boring. Duke versus Alabama. With Duke winning that game. Uh, I
It,
I'm just hopping on. Duke showed me something when Cooper Flag went down with injury, and they still ended up winning the whole ACC tournament. That showed me that Duke, even though I already knew this, but Duke was not just a one-trick pony, and they are a good team.
yeah,
And teams, not a player, a great teams win come March time, and so that kind of like solidified it for me. And I'm actually riding Duke. I know we haven't got to it yet, but I'm riding them all the way to the national championship.
of course you are, because why not?
I like candy bars, Kory.
I figured. I know you do. I've seen you. We both like candy bars. Hey, listen, I've got BYU getting beat by VCU in the first round.
Okay.
I got VCU is a tough, scrappy, just insurgency of a team, man. They always are a hornet to try to get rid of. You know what I mean? They are always just annoying to try to shake off. And I love their tenacity. I love what they bring to the table. BYU is one of those. They're a 6 seed, but they're a 6 seed based on their schedule. I think VCU is a tougher team, and I think Wisconsin's going to beat VCU. I don't see VCU's going for that. I thought about it because VCU is tenacious enough, but Wisconsin I think is going to have that. But yeah, so Duke, Alabama. I've got Duke beating Alabama by, like I said, probably 8 to 10. So if we go to our final four, Josh,
Yep.
I got Michigan State versus St. John's and Duke versus Houston. So two seeds and two 1 seeds.
Yeah, I also have two twos and two ones, but differently. I have Auburn and St. John's in the Final Four, and then Duke versus Tennessee. And then I'll go ahead and do the natty for my picks. I'm gonna have two ones. I got Auburn and Duke. Auburn and Duke going to the national championship in San Antonio, with ultimately Duke winning that game. I think it's going to be a fun, exciting game. I want to go with Auburn, but just the fan in me, I'm going to be going for Duke, and yeah, that's who my pick is.
Oh, God bless you. It's so nice that you can sit there and be so confident and be so wrong at the same time. It's just so nice and refreshing that someone is so set into their convictions, Josh. And I'm proud of you. God love you. That's why I love you so much. But you're wrong. And it's going to be Michigan State versus Houston at San Antonio. And as much as I love St. John's for what they bring and what they're trying to do, and the energy. Again, Michigan State is battle tested. They're blooded. They're ready, and I think Tom Izzo is going to have them the best prepared to go in and just shake things up in the tournament. And if they do lose, which I don't see them losing, but if they do lose, whatever team they lose to, by God, they're going to come out of that game physically drained to go into the next one. You know, and I have Houston beating Duke. I like Duke.
Wow.
I like Duke, but the energy in Houston,
I
the defense that Houston brings, and I am much more inclined to side with defensive teams than offensive teams. Defense is what wins to me, and Houston is the best defensive team in the entirety of college basketball. between them and
Yeah.
UConn when UConn plays. But Houston is just so nasty defensively. They're physical. They're big. They can do anything you need them to do defensively. Their rotations. They're well coached by Kelvin Sampson. I have them beating Duke, but it's going to be a close one because when Duke lights the score, they can light the scoreboard up. But Houston, I got them edging them out by maybe 6. I
Okay.
think it's going to be a low. It's going to be a low scoring game. I think Duke is going to be having their hands full with Houston's defense. Michigan State St. John's is going to be a shootout. I'm going to love seeing it. That's going to be an
Yeah,
exciting game.
I don't hate that pick, but honestly, the most shocking for me out of the 4 teams, and even though I have Duke winning, is if Auburn doesn't make it because they've been by far the best team, in my opinion, during the season. They even had to deal with some injuries, but
Yeah,
I like to look at their, how they matched up, who was their similar schedules, such like that. Auburn lost, or I'm sorry, won versus Houston earlier in the year. Was in
right,
November, so it was very early.
right.
And they lost to Duke. That's why I'm going to ride with Duke, and that's why I have Auburn over
my
there.
thing with Auburn, Josh, is, and this is going to sound extremely petty, and I know that. If they were in the Big Ten or the ACC and they won either one of those and dominated those conferences the way they did, I hear you. I absolutely hear you. But the ACC and the Big Ten are the two toughest, nastiest conferences to play in, next to the Big East.
Not not
Let's
this
not forget
year.
the Big East.
SEC has been by far the best conference in college
But
basketball.
but it
It's not even
depends,
close.
though. It's like what you and I have said for years. When the Big Ten, we always said for years when the Big Ten, by the time they get to the tournament, they're beat to crap because the teams beat the snot out of each other, and they're competitive and they want to win the
Or
Big Ten.
or the Big Ten's overrated.
Oh, Josh, the Big Ten has been overrated for 30 years. Come on now.
Well, I guess they proved it this year, though, that I might be right because North Carolina's in with one quad win over Indiana.
You don't say.
And
For
it's a
those of
different time, my friend. Stanford is in the ACC, which I don't know. I know some of you guys might not have maps, not sure, but California is on the complete opposite side of the ACC conference. You can't
what's
get
the
further away.
what's the ACC stand for, Josh?
Well, apparently it's all cross country.
Is it like the Atlantic Coastal Conference? Isn't that what
That's
it's
what it
supposed to
used to
be?
be. Now it's just who's got the money? You got the money. You're all here, over here.
Hey, for those of you who don't know, if you ever see Josh out and about, ask him about the Big Ten and see if he can remember, if anyone can remember the original Big Ten, because it's like the Big 40 now.
It
It
is.
is the Coast to Coast Conference. From sea, it should be renamed the Sea to Shining Sea Conference.
Yeah. It
You
should
got
just
Oregon,
they should just drop the
UCLA,
10. It should just be called big.
Rutgers,
It's just big.
the
Big.
big conference.
Lots of
You got
teams. It's the lots of conference.
all over you got Pacific Northwest, California, New Jersey, Midwest, all over the place in the Midwest. It's just like, wow, we go as far, and then you got Maryland over there. You got the East Coast, West Coast, Midwest, Pacific the Plains. Oh my
Oregon
God. Yeah, Oregon, UCLA,
is
Rutgers up in New Jersey, Maryland, and then you got Penn State and all that coming this way, and then you got Michigan, Indiana, like the original areas. You got Minnesota and Wisconsin up in the north near the Canadian border. You just got we're everywhere,
yes.
man. The Big Ten is legit everywhere except for the South.
It's like someone who was designing the conferences was like cross-eyed or dyslexic or something, and just made a circle, and he thought he was close, and never mind, I got the whole U.S.
That's where you go with that.
But it's money. That's what it comes down to.
Oh, I'm surprised they don't have like any old Big 12 teams or other SEC teams. Like, hey, we'll take one of each.
And then you got the
We'll,
Pac-10 with like 2 teams.
yeah,
Where'd
we'll
you all
take.
go?
You know what? Kentucky and Louisville are close. Might as well just gobble Kentucky up. And then Oklahoma, hell, they're close. Might as well take them. You know.
Yeah.
All right, Josh, you got Duke winning the whole thing. You said.
Yep.
My friend, am going to shock the world. As if I haven't shocked the world already with our TikTok, by the way. Our TikTok blew up because I was right. And I'm just going to get that a little bit, brush that off a little bit there, some silver and black. Hey, I've got Michigan State winning the whole thing. I think Tom Izzo is close to retirement. I think
Hey,
it's the Spartans to lose. And how many total points will be scored in the championship game? Tiebreaker, Josh.
by Michigan State.
Well, that's how many total points will be scored. So between the two teams, I'm going to
Right.
say 148.
Oh, well, I don't have the right same teams, but I actually had 147.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah, I was thinking like a 77-70 type game.
Yeah, it's like
That's
it's
right. I can
well
do math.
with Houston's defense, you're not going to score a lot on them. You know what I mean? You're
Right.
just not. But Michigan State can play just as physical. They're not as good defensively. I think they're slightly better shooting. They're a slightly better shooting team. I think they're a slightly more aggressive team when it comes to not being afraid to take, tougher shots and go up against a tougher defense and not be afraid to shy away from it. I think Houston, again, that's one of the best. Houston has one of the best defensive teams I've ever seen in college basketball. Like Kelvin Sampson has them playing tremendously well in defense. Michigan State, I think, edges them in offense, and they can play just as physical on defense. So that's why I give Michigan State the edge. But ladies and gentlemen, let us know what you think in the comments below. Who do you have winning the whole thing? Do you think I'm crazy? Do you think Josh is crazy? Do you think we're both Looney Tunes?